And oh my goodness, it is early in the morning. I woke up around 4 something, and it's Christmas Day, and this has been on my mind for a while. And the reason why is because this time of year tends to bring up a lot of people's traumas. And I had this idea this year that we could do something different and that we could manage our traumas like visionaries. And what I mean by that is really changing the perspective of how we view and experience our trauma. For me, this time of year, and actually for everybody, we're always kind of reviewing what we have as far as, where we've been and the people that we have in our life. And especially around this time, we focus on who's in our life and we think about family and if there's conflict, that brings stuff up. And this time of year, it brings things up because there's people that we love that are gone. There might be people that caused us trauma that are gone, and they may still be around. There's so many different ways that we all kind of experience our traumas during this time of year because things are brought up, because this time of year kind of forces us to bring everybody together, but also the beginning of a new year causes us to contemplate all that we are, everywhere that we've been, and kind of take accounts of what happened to us this year, who we lost, who we gained. So it's not unusual that we would experience some deeper emotions around this time of year. And I don't like to use the word trauma lightly because that word gets used quite a lot. But if you have this lingering emotion around the same thing that's affected every part of your life and how you view something, that is definitely a trauma. And one of my traumas, around this time of year, my mom, her birthday was or is the day after Christmas. And of course, I always think of her this time of year. But I also think of the mother figures in my life. I also take into account family and different relationships that I have. And just one of the things that I realized this year that I really wanted to do was, instead of focusing on the trauma and the sadness of the relationship, my mom had an addiction to alcohol and it completely changed her as a person. And unfortunately, there was so much of my life that she was like that you're kind of left with the memories of that and the meanness and all the things that addiction brought. And this year, I just kind of thought about how I didn't want to continuously be experiencing that every year if I could help it. When you have a parent that you've experienced trauma with, it never goes away. And it doesn't mean that you haven't dealt with it, because there's many layers of dealing with it. Just like this year, I'm on another layer of it. So people who say, oh, you haven't dealt with it because you're feeling emotions, that's BS, because you're always going to be dealing with it in some way, because we're always awakening to something, a new understanding of ourselves and how we process through. And I don't know if it's because I'm 54 years old now, and I'm a different person, and because I'm always evolving. So literally every time that, every year you're kind of a new person because you've developed so much. But I just decided that, the history is. I know what it was. And instead of, reliving the darker side of that relationship every single year that it comes up, I want to just choose and be a visionary with my trauma and visualize who she was meant to be. And I guess it's that form of love called agape, which is like loving the unlovable. And thinking about the people in your life that caused trauma or hurt or pain, and visualizing them in the way that God would have intended them. And so in my case, in dealing with someone who really hurt me, who had an addiction, I can look at them as a visionary and visualize who God intended them to be. Because usually in that relationship somewhere there was a spark of who they were meant to be. You may have been able to get a glimpse of it a few times, or maybe even once. But you could see inside them that there was something there that was beautiful, that was who they were meant to be, not who they turned out to be. And this isn't about letting people off the hook, or not making people take responsibility. Well, you can't make anyone take responsibility, but it's about loving yourself enough to have a different way of perceiving the things that you've been through, and letting yourself move past it. Because you can't change who people are. You can't change who people became. You can't change who they were to you, or the things that people have done to you. The only thing that you can control is the way that you are going to move through it in your life. And if every time your trauma comes up, you acknowledged it mentally and emotionally and spiritually in your heart, but you chose to see them as God intended them to be, because I guarantee you when they cross over to that other side, they are not going to maintain whatever those defects were. All of those defects are things we acquire in the world, and they're like a robe that gets taken off when you cross over. They go into that viewing room and they see who they became on earth, while realizing who they were meant to be as pure God source. The world has a way of really messing people up. And when they get messed up, they mess up other people. And it's this cycle. So we can have this visionary look at the people that have hurt us. And we can choose to understand that, but decide that we want to look past that to see, was there ever a glimmer that we could see of the divine person that God meant them to be? And if we can see that, can we just lock on to that? So that's one of the ways that I process during this time of year, that I'm choosing this year to see things as God intended them to be. And I'm choosing not to hang on to my trauma. I'm choosing to know myself and know my hurts and my pains, and realize all of those things, but just turning it all over to God. Because I've lived long enough with those things. It's a choice. So I just wanted to share that perception with you of how to experience your trauma as a visionary. And I invite you to do the same.